So, welcome everybody. We're going to get started in 30 seconds here. Talk about skills for secondary school success. If you would like, please put your name and your role and your organization in the chat. And then just think for a moment, how did schools help prepare you for life? You don't have to say anything, just think about that as we take one more minute to let people get in. So just share who you are, uh, and how did school help prepare you for life? All right. See, we got people from all over the country. It's exciting. All right, I'm going to get us going today. Welcome. I'm Bob Balfans, the director of the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University. I'm going to be joined today with my colleagues Jerry and Michelle and Greg and some teachers that have used skills for secondary school success. And we're here just to share with you what it is and how you might find it helpful. All right, next slide. Um, well, we'll give a brief introduction, then we're going to hear from folks that have used the materials, and then we're going to actually take you on a little tour of the materials and show you how you can get them for free from our website, and also explore them a little bit, and then we'll answer your questions along the way. So, Skills for Secondary School Success really started as a project 5 years ago to help create activities that initially aimed at middle school students, particularly eighth graders, to help them become, fancy term, more self-regulated learners, better able to manage their own learning. And in working with schools to help create this and develop this, we quickly learned from them that this has absolute utility for eighth graders. The idea was getting them ready for high school. But it actually, there's fifth graders that benefit from this. There's 10th graders that benefit from this. It's really helps, students really from that, beginning of the middle grades to early high school, um, build their capacity to sort of manage their own learning, and also to sort of know how to, work well with others, right? At the crux of it, we know for our kids to succeed, they've got to manage their learning and they've got to get along. And we also know the pandemic, greatly challenged that in many ways, right? That experience of being out of school for a while, we know that in many ways made that more challenging for our students. So it sort of met an existing and an emerging need. Um, uh, and really the idea is to foster, independence, goal setting, resilience, communication, collaboration, purpose, and a future readiness. That's what these activities are really designed to do. And they were done in partnership with university researchers and classroom teachers. All right, next slide. Um, so why do we need this? What of all the things we're doing, why spend time here? Well, one we've heard, and I think you've probably experienced, as I said, from, that too many students are struggling to take ownership of their learning. There's a growing need for this idea of self-regulation to better manage their learning and interact with others and make decisions. We're also hearing from employers, right, that they're really looking for this idea of communication, collaboration, perseverance, critical thinking. So both to succeed in school and in life, people are coming together and say there's these sets of skills that help people be more productive learners, more effective learners, and more effective collaborators, and partnering and learning with others. All right, next slide. How do we develop this? Well, we grounded it in the latest research on adolescent learning, motivation, and development. As we've all come to learn that the adolescent brain is still developing. In many ways, the brain is even into the early 20s. So things that we might think are like, of course people know how to do that, or of course people should be able to do that, or if we just tell them to do that, they'll do it. Some of the learnings say that no, adolescents are still in a developmental phase, and some of those self-regulation and sort of intrinsic motivation even are things that are developing, not necessarily fully developed. Um, we really wanted this to be both evidence-based, but also engaging to really work in classrooms, be something that kids would be interested in doing and teachers would be interested in teaching. Not something that's just like, okay, this is good for you, take your medicine, nobody enjoys it. We really wanted to be things that would, help engage kids in learning as they learn better how to manage their learning. And it was really important to be practice validated. The teachers use and help develop this so we know it works in real settings. It's not a hypothetical or hopeful. It's very practical. And it really, builds engagement and relationships and a stronger academic focus. That sort of was the how it was developed. So what is this? You keep talking about this, but what is it? Come on. Um, so it's really built into 5 units. You can do them sequentially, but you can also do them in an order that makes sense to you, or do one and not do the other. It's designed to be very flexible. Um, First, we begin with this idea of learning with a sense of purpose, to have a reason and understanding of why am I learning. It's not just something I'm going through the motions because I was told to do, but there's a purpose. We then deal with how do you learn how to confront challenges and have a growth mindset, how to, not give up when you get frustrated, or to sort of just assume that if you can't do it, it means you never be able to do it. And also when you have a challenge, how to handle that productively, and not in ways that are either detrimental or disruptive, right? How to have that ability to manage my learning and understand how I learn and what I need to do to learn well. How I can work with others as we learn together. We know so much of the world now is collaborative and communicative, and that takes working with others. And then ultimately getting back to the why. How do I make a difference in my community and my world with my learning? So we begin and end with that why. All right. Next slide. What would exist, what was created is that for each of those units, there is a teacher's manual that has by unit grades. There's 5 units. In each unit, there's multiple lessons. So there's 40 lessons across the whole set of materials. There's PowerPoints for every lessons, including the teacher's guide. There's also printable and online resources for students. It's available in English and Spanish. There's also professional development materials available at the website, also for free. That is basically an asynchronous series of narrated PowerPoints that either teachers could go through on their own, or sort of a trainer at the school or district level could sort of take that on to be the one to use those materials to help their colleagues. Next slide. Um, as we said, this was designed, and we learned as we were developing it that there's a lot of flexibility, and that's the way it gets used most often. If we said like, nope, this is a quarter class for 8th graders, it wouldn't get used that much, and we found that it could be used in many other ways. So it can be part of, maybe you have an existing semester-long course that sort of touches on some of these things, but not all of them. And this would add components to your existing course. Number of people use it during advisory, especially when their advisories don't have a lot of preset materials and it's sort of left to the teachers to figure out what to do in that time. Um, Others use individual lessons or units that meet specific needs, and they often weave them into existing courses like social studies or English or other courses, where they're sort of built into activities within those courses. And as we said, teachers have now used this successfully from grades 5 to 10 in all types of schools. You know, uh, Alternative schools, traditional district schools, charter schools, online hybrid schools. It's found a use almost in anywhere that students learn today, because these are sort of enduring skills that you sort of need no matter how or where you're learning. It's designed for students to be both collaborative and independent. There is a accumulating project, if this design there that's about a real world proposal to make a difference. And again, you can't stress enough, the lessons can really be customized. Even the way when you download them, you're able to manipulate them. Um, so they can reflect the backgrounds and experiences of your students. If the suggested activity doesn't seem to fit your circumstances, you are encouraged and enabled to sort of flip something, switch something else in that works better. All right. And with that, we get to hear from the folks that have used this material and have learned how to use it and have made it much better. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jerry now to welcome them and help share their learnings with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, this is so exciting. We have Betsy Warner and Aaliyah Cohen, who are both from Grand River Academy in Grand Junction, Colorado. I live in Denver, Colorado, so they're about 4 hours away from me on what's called the Western Slope of Colorado. And, Bob mentioned lots of different environments for the use of our skills for secondary school success. And Aaliyah and Betsy will share a little bit more about themselves. They are in that online and hybrid teaching situation at Grand River Academy. And so we are excited to have them with us today. Also, I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask Betsy and Aaliyah. If, though, during the course of this conversation, you think of some questions that you also would like to ask either of them, please drop them in chat. We'll be monitoring the chat so that they can answer your specific questions. Hi, Betsy and Aaliyah. I'm going to give this question to both of you, Betsy or Aaliyah. Not sure if you had already discussed who wants to go first with this, but just really just to share a little bit with us about your experience, what it was like teaching the Skills for Secondary School Success curriculum to your students, what went well and what might have been some challenges.
Aaliyah, do you want me to start? Or do you want to start?
It doesn't matter. I saw you were unmuted, so go for it. You're good.
We're both teaching today, so we're on active duty right this minute. So we didn't have a chance to speak about it beforehand. I would say something I really appreciated about the curriculum is it goes along with the CASEL framework. And for our district, we're using the 4 quadrants of SEL: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management. And the lessons are designed with all that in mind. I like how well organized they are. The ease of accessing the materials has been good. Now that it's all housed online in their website, which they're going to show you in a little bit, it's made it even easier that this year. Last year we had a giant book to get everything from. And this year we have the ease of the internet for that. We are using it out of order this year. I'm in the blended online model. So I have students grades 6 through 9, and I see 2 different grade levels every day of the week in person, and then they're working asynchronously at home. And having these materials to pull into my Google Classroom has been super nice. What else? Aaliyah, do you want to piggyback on any of that?
I definitely can. So while Betsy teaches on like the blended hybrid side of our school, I teach on the fully online side of our school. And I would echo what Betsy said about the ease of making these lessons work for us. So often when we have a curriculum given to us in the online teams, it can be difficult to adapt to our learning environment, which is primarily Google Meets. These were very easy to adapt. When it came to discussions, we were very easily able to turn those into digital discussions, whether the students were unmuting and talking to us or interacting over something asynchronous like a Padlet board, for example. So we really love how adaptable these lessons are, and we use them in advisory to teach those SEL skills and also help students learn how to be online learners, because they do have to manage their own learning more so than they would need to in a brick and mortar school full time. And so we found that a lot of these lessons where we were talking about self-regulation in advisory classes this week, and we found that there are many ways to tie that into the curriculum and our expectations for the kids.
Thank you both. as you were sharing that it's easy to use and been able to contextualize it, are there any particular units that stood out for you or your students that you talked about maybe not using it in the same order this year, Betsy?
Sure. And I forgot to say thank you to you guys. I came right off of lunch duty into this meeting. So thank you for giving us this opportunity today. We chose this year. So we piloted it last year and we did the units in the order that they came, 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't quite get to 5. We have a lot of things our district pushes in as well for advisory. Just like Aaliyah, I use it during advisory class, which is 30 minutes a day. So we chose this year to take Unit 3 to the forefront. That's managing my learning. And with the 6th graders, that's been particularly good to make the transition from elementary to middle school with the managing my learning. I was super excited about, I think it was lesson 4 and 5. The students dig into the multitasking brain. They learn, it helps them to set a schedule. Like Aaliyah said, our kids are having to manage their learning when they're not with us for those asynchronous days at home. And this helped them set a schedule. It got their parents involved, their learning coaches, and working with them. Then they dug into the multitasking brain. There is a teaching reading lesson that explains to the students what their brains are doing when they're reading, and also helps my colleagues who aren't reading teachers feel more confident with teaching close reading. So there's a lesson on why reading matters. There's practice with taking Cornell notes. I'm looking at my notes on the side over here, setting SMART goals. And then we're going to move into Unit 4 next. And Unit 4 has some really exciting things too that I remember from last year. It's effective relationships with others. So building that sense of community in your classroom, which we are always still working on, I think. Does that answer your question, Jerry?
Absolutely. Aaliyah, is
Okay.
there anything that you want to build on there as far as for where Betsy, any units that you used with your kiddos in particular?
We also changed the order up a little bit and moved Unit 3 earlier this year. There's a lot of front loading that has to happen with online students in terms of teaching them how to be online students at the start of each quarter. And those lessons have integrated really well into that process. I also really enjoy teaching all of the lessons that have to do with like your future self. There's a lot of, especially in Unit 1, exploration with regard to the student's future self. And I've found that those are engaging for students too. They've really enjoyed the career exploration. They really enjoyed making vision boards and Canva. That's been a really engaging unit that I think helped them see, connections between what they're learning in school right now and their aspirations for the future.
Thank you for that. And just building on something that you talked about, Betsy, you talked about you have kiddos from grade 6 through 9. Are you using this curriculum with all of your students, or are you using it with a particular group of students?
My team and I, so there are 4 teachers on our team, we're using it with all the students. Personally, I'm the 6th grade advisor, so I'm teaching it with my 6th graders. So we have another teacher who's the 7th grade advisor, and they're using the curriculum with 7th and then 8th and then 9th, same thing. Last year I was the 7th grade advisor, I believe, so I used it with my 7th grade students.
And Aaliyah, what grade band are you using the curriculum with?
Absolutely. We have a team of 3 of us who teach advisory together online. We have students in 6th through 9th grades. We have them meet as a whole group 1 day per week, and then we split into like a middle school and a 9th grade group, and then we split again into even smaller groups. And because our time with them is so limited online, we typically take each lesson and we stretch it into a week. It's those 4 half-hour meetings for us. And so we'll do like the bulk of the lesson with the whole group, the 6th through 9th grade group. And then we'll do some more interactive activities in the middle school and 9th grade groups. And then by the time we get to the small groups at the end of the week, we are typically doing like one-on-one intervention, and students are working on the assignments that go with each lesson.
So it sounds like you've customized a little bit of the curriculum for each of the different grade levels that of the students that you're working with. So it's been great. But one of the things is sometimes there are barriers or challenges, when you're starting to implement something new. So if you were thinking about any lessons that you learned in implementing this curriculum, what would you share with teachers who are online with us today and they're thinking about implementing skills for secondary school success in as part of their curriculum? What advice might you give them as far as for some of the things that, for them to either anticipate or, your thought processes when you were beginning to use the curriculum, or maybe now that you're using it a second year, what you changed for this second year? And Aaliyah, do you want to answer that first? Betsy's
I
probably.
can. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just collecting my thoughts a little bit. I guess due to just the nature of our schedule and having to stretch the lessons, sometimes we do run into, a situation where we might not have enough content for the 4th day that we're teaching a lesson. And so something that I've found helpful is going into TED Ed videos on YouTube. And I can usually find a TED Ed video that coordinates with whatever we're doing that week. And I've been able to supplement in that way. The other barrier we sometimes experience online, and this is really not specific to 4S, this is just like part of the game in online teaching, is just kind of figuring out how to adapt some activities to the online world. We do have a lot of students coming to us with severe anxiety and with these adverse experiences in brick and mortar schools that really impact their level of comfort engaging with their peers. And so just being creative and finding different ways that we can encourage them to interact with each other that is not, necessarily unmuting their mic and talking in a Google Meet. And that's where things like the Padlets will come in.
Thank you. And Betsy?
I was going to address more the planning side of things.
Sure.
I think the videos are super helpful. So when they open the content in a minute, you'll see there's a teacher video for each unit. And if you preview the unit with that teacher video, kind of walks you through troubleshooting right there. And then I would say the student electronic files are great if you can just pull those into your Google Classroom if you have a learning management system where you could pull those digital files in. So that you don't have to have a printed copy necessary for every student, or you can, of course, make printed copies if you're in person like me. The PowerPoints, you're going to want to download those ahead of time because they do sometimes take a second to download. So you want to have those ready to go for the kids. And then the PowerPoint breaks, like if Aaliyah is saying do it over 4 days, the PowerPoint, you could do, slides 1 through 4 the first day. So that there's plenty of content on those PowerPoints to either stretch or condense. So I'm on the kind of flip side of things as Aaliyah because I have those different grade levels in person every day. I don't have the luxury of meeting with my 6th graders on the 2 days that they're not on site. So we have to sort of condense the lessons where Aaliyah gets to stretch them. And it's worked for both of us. So you have that flexibility and that ability to customize the length of time you're going to spend on these lessons based on your school and your needs.
I think everybody appreciates hearing the both and that, because many people have that 20 to 30 minutes to work on the curriculum sometimes every day, or like you're saying, Betsy, just a couple of times a week. And then some folks are fortunate like Aaliyah to be able to do it every day. So we have just a couple of minutes left. And so I would like to just hear a little bit about how students have reacted to the curriculum. Like, I think, Aaliyah, you were talking a little bit about how the kiddos are in your environment and how you've adapted by using Padlet, or other similar tools for students who may not feel as comfortable like we are speaking today. But how have your kiddos reacted to the curriculum?
They've responded really positively. I have noticed huge growth in terms of their ability to collaborate with each other online. That showed up this year in the creation of our social contract. We had students working together to create a physical product for our social contract, and they were doing that over a Google Meet. And it was just really cool to see them be able to divvy up responsibilities spontaneously. It wasn't something that we had to go over with them this year because we did all of that wonderful learning with them last year. So I think it's just given them a structure and a framework for having those social connections with peers, even though they are not physically in the same room as their peers. And that's really wonderful to see.
That's a powerful statement. We talk so much about student connectedness. And so hearing that the students are more connected to their peers, as well as to you, Aaliyah, thank you for that. And Betsy, you've changed grade levels a little bit, but please share a little bit about how your students reacted to last year or reacting to this year, the curriculum.
I wanted to touch on the point our district uses a belonging survey, and we do that at the beginning of the year and then the middle of the year. And our data, so the way we're building that sense of community is through our classroom procedures, but also through our advisory. It's really that SEL lens. And our data showed that the students did have that sense of belonging. The curriculum it allows kids to be vulnerable. They're not all going to have the same answer ever. So we're also looking at individual differences. Kids are able to talk through those differences and see the lens of where my friend is coming from. And I think that's helped build the sense of community. There's a little bit of resilience built in. Like Aaliyah said, they have a vision board. And for some kids, just the sheer act of cutting was very hard. They did theirs online, but we have, like you guys mentioned earlier in the beginning of this webinar, the COVID kids were definitely impacted with the ability to do those small motor skill, the fine motor skill challenge can be challenging. So they have to work through those challenges in that activity that Aaliyah mentioned with the vision boarding. But overall, I think it helps to celebrate the kids' differences. It helps them to feel empathy towards each other and build a sense of collaboration.
Thank you both. So I've asked questions, but I want to make sure that as we close up our dialogue and our conversation, that if there's anything that you want to share that either my questions didn't address or Betsy, sometimes you're like, I wanted to share this. Please feel like in these closing moments, please share just from your hearts, your classrooms, just anything else that's top of mind for the educators that are with us today. And whoever, okay, Aaliyah.
Yeah, I would just add, so my first year of teaching was the 2019-2020 school year. And so since that time, I've just been struck by the differences in the ways that students interact with each other now versus when I was interacting with my peers in school. And for so long, I felt like I was at a loss for how to help them. I wasn't taught in my teacher education program how to teach these social skills. And so to have this curriculum and to be able to adapt it to the needs of my kids has just been phenomenal in that way. And I just really appreciate it. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Final words, Betsy? And you're on mute.
I got flustered. Sorry.
Okay.
I would just encourage people to give it a whirl. I mean, you're going to have a chance in a minute to dig into the materials and get in there and see what you find. I mean, there are phenomenal resources in here that support Black History Month. You can bring in other cultural aspects. I think we had a woman speak last time about she was from New Mexico and they were able to pull in Dolores Huerta. So you can find community leaders that either fit your region or your ethnicity that you're teaching to mostly, and also celebrate all the ethnicities. Um, I was trying to think about something else. There's a great Martin Luther King speech in there that is his speech to eighth graders, which is pretty neat. I just say you guys have built this wealth, this resource, this wealth of materials that's all there for us to use. So dig in and see what you think.
Thank you, Betsy. Just anyone, I don't see any questions in chat, but does anyone have a question for Aaliyah or Betsy after hearing a little bit about the Skills for Secondary School Success curriculum? Now I was a teacher, so I have great wait time. So I know Betsy's teeing us up for my colleague Greg, who is going to take us through the website. So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can walk us through this amazing website that Betsy's been giving little glimpses of.
Thank you,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
As I bring up my sharing and whatnot, I want to thank those wonderful teachers for sharing their insights with us. It was wonderful. Um, can everyone see the website? Great. This is the materials page of the website, and I'm going to scroll down through it. The beginning gives you some information about what we've just discussed and seen on previous slides. So I'm going to delve right into the unit structures. What I'm showing you here for Unit 1 is mirrored through all 5 units. The layout is exactly the same. It'll tell you what the unit contains, the lessons the unit contains, what the guiding questions for the unit are as well. Here is the video that Betsy spoke of that will introduce the unit to you, give you tips, walk you through each lesson of the unit. And over to our right here, these bars here, each of these areas are filled with the individual lessons. This is what's in the teacher manual. These are the teacher files. This gives you all the your instructional practices, all the student materials for each lesson. Here are the unit PowerPoints. Again, all you have to do is click on the link and it will automatically download the PowerPoint to your computer. And as Betsy said, you will want to do it perhaps a little bit in advance because some connections and whatnot, and some of the files are rather large. And also within each of the lesson PowerPoints, there are notes on certain slides that give you uh, uh, prompts and lets you know what you might want to say or do for this particular slide that's built in through all the lessons. The student materials are next. We have them broken down into student printable files. Again, this is all the individual files for each lesson. They're all in PDF form. The PDFs are not protected. So therefore, if you're savvy and you know how to edit a PDF, you can go in and customize it to yourself. You can also save the PDF as a Word file and then go into your Word and really make the lesson your own. Save it locally, customize it to your own personal needs as well. The electronic files here below are the mirror images of the printable files, except they're available in fillable PDFs. which means on a pad or a phone or a laptop or a computer, the students can actually type in whatever they need to answer the questions or fill out the charts they need to fill out online without even having to print them at all. The classroom materials under that are things that you might want to print. There are gallery walk posters. There might be things that are you might need to set up um, areas of your classroom for sections where groups of kids will go and work, and there'll be a little something you'll print out for that particular um, uh, section of the classroom. The unit Spanish PowerPoints for the teachers are here. It's the exact duplicate of the PowerPoints in the teacher manuals, except they're translated for Spanish. This is the same here with the electronic. These aren't electronic. Right now, we only have printable PDF versions. I'm working right now on converting the printed versions into fillable PDFs, and hopefully will be up by the beginning of 2026, and they'll be located right underneath. And then finally, the last bar is the professional development video. It's the same unit video as up here. It's just that if you want to do it in a professional development situation, gives you some information, and then the downloaded of the materials for the professional development you may want to conduct for the unit. On the left side are the unit and course manuals. You've seen everything is brought out individually. You can download, you can do this or that. For each unit, you can also preview the entire teacher manual for Unit 1, all the lessons together. You can download it, or you can just look at it, because again, it's a PDF that will bring up the entire unit. You can do the same with the student materials. They're all together in one PDF instead of having to do it lesson by lesson. The same with the Spanish student materials. Below each unit also, you can download the complete course teacher manual, which has all 5 units in PDF form with the teacher files and the student files all together. And the same for all of the student materials and all of the student Spanish materials. And as I said, that's basically the structure. Unit 2 is set up the same way as you see here. There's the video, all of the bars with the individual components, the unit and course components, and that's how they go down into Unit 3. And here is Unit 4. And finally, Unit 5. Again, all the same way. So you don't get confused from unit to unit. It all looks the same. It all feels the same. It all follows the same structure. And that is really it for the website. If you have any questions, a little later at the end of the presentation, you will see my email address. You can always contact me if you have any problems with the website or downloading or anything like that. Please feel free to email me. And yeah, don't be shy. I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. I'm gonna and thank you. Someone, Michelle or Maria, put the link is in the chat to this page. You can go on now or whenever and check it out for yourself and start downloading. We're encouraging you to download your hearts to your heart's content. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Michelle, who is going to actually start us and give us a sample lesson, walk us through a sample lesson.
Thanks,
So
Greg.
there you go, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love going through the website. It just is so helpful. Claudia's clapping, she likes it too. So one of the things that we did, you heard Betsy talk about sometimes it can take a long time to download some of these PowerPoints and these documents. One of the schools we worked with actually put all of this in a Google Classroom, and it is wonderfully done and organized. So that's one way that you can house everything. Before we get into just a glimpse of what a lesson would look like, I want to remind you that when you're going through the manual, and I have the big manual because I'm old school. I like to annotate. I like to write things and highlight things. And so some of my colleagues like links, and that's okay too. We have both. So each lesson begins with an essential question. You heard a reference to the Cornell notes. That's also part of this. It's one of the lessons embedded in our manual and in some of our materials. So that I know that some of you do some AVID strategies. So we do have the essential question, guiding questions. Your objectives are already done for you. It talks about how to prepare yourself in advance for some of these lessons, which majority of the things are done for you. It's just like making copies if you wanted to of the materials. There's materials for you, student materials, and of course, we love vocabulary. So you can go to the next piece. We're going to look at Unit 3, Lesson 8. So if you have that open, if not, it's okay. Every lesson begins with a do now. And if you know anything about Bambrick, Bambrick talks a little bit about do nows and how it just kind of sets the tone and sets the pace for our students and the expectations. A lot of our teachers have this on the board when they start, and that's just so they can take roll attendance, get themselves organized, kind of setting again the precedence for what the classroom is going to look like for that moment in time. You can do this in several different ways, right? You could have them answer this on a sticky note and paste it somewhere, like on a poster up in front of the room. You could have an interactive notebook. You can have students just write it and keep it on the side for them. They can share it with a partner, turn and talk, some of those strategies that you can utilize for the do now. So every single, again, lesson starts with a do now. Okay. Again, another thing that we start out with is an agenda. Kids need to know where they're going. We need to know where we're going as educators. And so by the end of today's lesson, we always talk about the students will be able to, or I will be able to, name the steps to a SMART goal, identifying appropriate goals to set, and setting a SMART goal. So again, this is the unit that's talking about managing my learning and setting SMART goals. And so we really want to bring that to life for the students. So we're going to look right now at one of the activities, and this is the value of goals, and this is on the next slide. We're going to look at 4 biographies, and we're going to go into breakout sessions here in a second. And we're going to have a little bit of biography. We're going to have a discussion. This is the same thing you would do in your classroom. Here's where the autonomy comes in and makes things a lot funner as a teacher. So you have this, how would you implement this? There's a couple of different ways. You could have 4 groups where they do a jigsaw type of strategy. You could put these around the classroom and have a butcher paper with wows and wonders where the students can kind of annotate some of the things that they were thinking about as they read it. Different methods. Again, you have the autonomy to make it your own, whatever you feel best in doing. And this is all on the PowerPoint for you, so it's just strategically placed. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into breakout rooms, 4 breakout rooms. We're going to be in there for about 4 minutes. You're going to read a short summary of these very famous people, Venus Williams. You're going to have Katie Ledecky, Thomas Edison, and Will Smith. And the expectation that we would have for students as well, that we would put on the board for them to see what's expected of them, is each team is prepared to share a short summary of the biography, read the quote to the class, and state in their own words how the team thinks the quote applies to goals and setting. So on the next slide, you'll see these are the expectations that we would have for our students when they're completed with their small group. Okay? That sounds pretty good. So your job in your breakout room is you guys are going to read the quote, and Jerry's going to put those quotes in the chat for us. And you're going to read the quote that correlates with your room. So if you are in room 1, you're going to read quote 1. If you're in room 2, you're going to read quote 2 together. And then just share in your own words how you think that quote applies to goals and goal setting. And then we'll come back, choose somebody within your breakout room who's going to be your spokesperson. Okay? Well, I think everyone's back. So we're going to hear from the group. So Again, if you're in your classroom, you could have one spokesperson. You could have this, if you had done this as a gallery walk, you could have one student stay at like the area that you had written down the wows and wonders to like present the information that they gathered, just like we do in our own, professional developments as adults. Let's just bring that to the classroom if you wanted to, or you could do it in the jigsaw method like we're going to do here today. So let's hear from team one, who's the spokesperson, and let's talk about some of the things that you think, how your team talked about how the quote applies to goals and goal setting.
Michelle, I think we have teams 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. Were you going to present one though? Did you say? Nope. Okay. Team 2, please. Who's in team 2? Who's our representative for team 2?
I am our representative from Team 2.
Okay.
I'm Kavita. And we had multi-time gold medalist Katie Ledecky. I didn't realize she had that many medals, but we went with hers. And her quote, she talks about setting goals that you think are impossible, but to work towards them every day. And then she goes on to talk about how, because anything is possible, so you know that you can accomplish it as long as you're actually working towards that specific goal. And based on her career, I would have to agree with her because I did not realize she is still the current record holder for 4 different events.
That's pretty incredible,
So
right?
I would have to agree with her quote about, setting a goal that you think is unattainable, but working towards it anyway.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if she actually ever set that type of record for herself, but she's the most decorated Olympic swimmer in American history.
Yeah. Thank you, Kavita. I like the idea, right? And we'll talk a little bit about it in just a second with SMART goals and the A meaning attainable as opposed to ambitious. Sometimes we set our goals really low and we model that a little bit for our students. So if we can set like higher goals and expectations for ourselves, for themselves, and we see them soar through with supports from the adults with them. So thank you, Kavita, for representing group 2. So if we could have group 3. So if you can summarize basically what your quote was and talk about how that quote applies to the goals and goal setting.
We did not select a spokesperson, so I am happy to talk for Team 3. We had a quote from Thomas Edison: if we did all the things we were capable of, we would literally astound ourselves, which we all were kind of taken aback by this quote. We all liked this quote. We didn't have as much time to discuss it because we got a little stuck trying to figure out the logistics of how to share a screen in Zoom. But we got there. I think something this quote makes me think about is how my students sometimes struggle to pick a goal or pick like a specific assignment goal. They'll get stuck in like the number of missing assignments that they have, and it becomes really hard to focus on one thing. And I definitely feel that in my own life too. Sometimes I have so many things that I want to do that it can be hard to focus on one thing. And so something that I would probably try to help them with when it comes to the SMART goal planning sheet is that specificity and focusing on one thing at a time. I don't know, Team 3, is there anything else that we should add? Cool. Thank you.
Tammy thinks you did a great job, Aaliyah. Thank you for the encouragement, Tammy of Aaliyah. Yeah, right. Like just I think that it's like a simple quote, but it's truly like how many times have we fulfilled a goal or went above and beyond it and thought, oh my God, I really did that. That's so cool. So imagine how our kids feel, right? So great. Thank you so much. Okay, group 4. And they're going to be talking to us about Will Smith, who's our spokesperson for group
Hey
4.
there. So my name is Veronica. I am from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Health Leadership, and I had Diane from Birmingham, Alabama. as my partner. And our quote was Will Smith, I never viewed myself as particularly talented. Where I excel is ridiculous, sickening work ethic. While other guys are sleeping, I'm working. And Diane really shared insight in just how she felt that Will Smith identified where he needed to work. Like he identified, this is my talent, this is not my talent, but also then identified that he had to work harder, right? And I kind of talked that as a productive struggle, and really turned it back to like, really instilling in our kids of you're not going to be good at everything right away. And that doesn't mean that you just stop and say that you can't do it or it's not for me. That sometimes well, not sometimes, all the time the learning is in the struggle. And sometimes you have to dig your heels in and there's the grit of being, this is what I'm going to do. So that's how we kind of summed up the quote.
I love that, Veronica. Thank you for sharing and thank you for being the spokesperson for your group. That whole grit, right? I think that, if you've read Duckworth, is it Duckworth's book about grit and how that, it's not as much as hard work and being this highly intelligent person. It's actually about having the grit, right? That nitty gritty to go forward. So that's one activity. I'm going to just go through really quick. Thank you all for your participation. I know it's late in the day. Thank you for doing that in your breakout rooms. We're going to look at one other activity. This is partner reading. And so what Aaliyah and Veronica were talking about like, how do I have a student choose their goals? And sometimes it's even harder for us in this reading that you could have partner reading, you could do a jigsaw, however you decided to do it. At the bottom, it says to ask yourself these questions. What's important to me? What do I find interesting? So really some guiding questions and helping our students develop a goal for themselves. And then as we move along, you could, after you hand this out or post it around the room, however you wanted to do this, on the next slide, you'll see the partner reading kind of piece. So really the teacher doesn't have to come up with what are the questions I'm going to ask them after they read this piece, right? It's already here for you in a partner reading. What is the value of goal setting that they can figure out, and why do we write down our goals? We heard Betsy talk about close reading strategies. Perhaps that's something that you use with that one pager. And then we're going to move into the activity 3, and that's really defining your SMART goals. And that's on the next slide. And really you heard me say specific, measurable, attainable, or ambitious, relevant, and time-bound. So however you feel that A needs to be. We will show this to the students, and then on the next page, they have a fillable, or if you utilize an interactive notebook, students can also do it this way. One of the things I taught special education, so for me, it was really important to have students draw something to remind them, really bringing that to life for the students. It works really well also for our students who are speaking English as a second language. So you could have them fill out what each letter means and then draw a little picture or an example to remind them what it meant. And then we have on the next slide, planning time. So actually having students plan out their SMART goals. So this would be an individual activity for them. They're going to take time to fill out their planning sheet, and we have an example of the planning sheet here. So what does that look like? Some independent time, maybe some conversation consultancy with the teacher to help guide them through that, and that they would keep that somewhere on their desk. So as we move to the next slide, formative assessments. So some of these are so hard to come up with exit tickets, right? We all love exit tickets. Sometimes it's hard to come up with the right formative question to ensure that our students understood the material and their time with us. So their exit ticket could be, my first step to completing my SMART goal is, and just allowing them to thinking about those steps in reaching those goals for themselves. And so that's just a snippet, you guys, of the lesson from Unit 3, Lesson 8. There's so much more, and please feel free to reach out if we can support you with going through these lessons. And I'll turn it over to Jerry.
And that's really what the next slide as we move through is for you to share with us any of your thoughts from our conversation today. Do you have reflections or questions, or maybe some wanderings about what we shared, either Betsy and Aaliyah or Michelle as she walked us through Unit 3, Lesson 8? Please feel free to come off mute. You don't need to drop it in chat. There's a few of us here, and we'd be happy to talk a little bit with you. And I see in chat right now, appreciate the connection to hold the piece about child development and just, really being attuned to the developing adolescent. So thank you for that, Veronica. Well, we'll move to the next slide. We're not going to keep you. As Michelle said, it's late. And so Greg walked us through all of these materials. And so all of them, make sure that you share them also with as many folks as you possibly can. You'll receive all of the materials. We're going to drop into chat one more time, just that all of these materials are a free resource. They are a continued resource that you can find on our website. If you do have any questions in the future, you'll see down there's a place for you to reach out to us, or if you have any questions about the website that Greg walked us through, he would be more than happy to address any of the questions or anything that you would have to share with us about the website. I just would like to, along with Michelle and our colleague Maria and Greg and Dr. Balfans, just say to each and every one of you, be well as you move onward into this holiday season. We really want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Greg said it, Betsy and Aaliyah, we really sincerely thank you for walking us through your journey of working with the Skills for Secondary School Success. We appreciate it. We value each and every one of you. Love you and thank you, and be well and onward.